Thanks for joining us, new growers and experts alike. I'm excited to be here and I'm happy to share our second episode. Please feel free to submit any questions you have and share any feedback after the webinar is over. What to expect today, we're going to do about 10 minutes of a presentation. Then I'm going to talk to a couple Grobo employees about their thoughts on cannabis culture. The topics today are going to be my cannabis journey from recreational to the medical side. We're going to talk about recreational cannabis in Canada and the US. And then we're going to talk to our panel, Jason and Jay. First, let's start with an introduction. I'm Stephen, I'm the horticulturalist here at Grobo. I've got 15 years of combined growing experience, first with the MMAR, through the MMPR, now with the ACMPR, and I'm also a designated grower with the ACMPR. I'm also the community manager here at All Growers. We have a link in the comments below. Go check it out. It's a great community of growers with beginners and experts, all trying to help each other achieve success. So let's dive right in and talk about my journey a bit. I was introduced to cannabis like many other Canadian teens were, in the form of hashish. My friends and I would put a dime coin, 10 cents, into the bottom of a beer bottle and swirl it around, tapping it on the side of our foot, shooting the dime out of the side of the bottle. It made a perfect hole for inserting a smoking piece of hash. They were called bottle tokes, and they were all I knew for years. This prompted me to start my first garden with a buddy in Florida all the way back in 1992. Eventually I started work and started up a family, and my cannabis use declined. I eventually had an injury that prompted a doctor's visit, and I was diagnosed with avascular necrosis of the right hip. Basically a painful injury that doesn't restrict your movement, but does cause pain when you walk. The doctor prescribed me opioids. We went through several different types of opioids, from morphine to all the oxys. During that time, I lost over 70 pounds, often wouldn't eat for several days, lost all of my appetite. This is when I went to the doctor again and asked about cannabis and its effects on appetite. The doctor told me that he had 7 or 8 different patients that he had legally prescribed cannabis to. So he thought I could be one as well. He had one patient that was over 72 years old that was using cannabis. So he signed me up with the MMAR, and I signed up with a licensed producer here in Canada. They produce warehouses full of cannabis for the medical patients. I spent hours on the phone trying to place my order. Once was disconnected and had to get back in line. I'd spend over $750 a month on the medication. Once it arrived, it was poor quality, very dry, and then once I went to reorder it, it was unavailable. I eventually realized that I had to take this into my own hands, and I started my own grow at home. My first grow was called 3S, or Small, Stealthy, and Stupid. My initial setup included a large plastic deep water culture bin, 6 compact fluorescent bulbs, 2 computer fans, and 2 plants set up. Oh, the lessons learned with each and every grow. It didn't take long before I realized that an investment was needed, not only of my money, but of my time. This brings me to Grobo. I'm now a part of a team that has designed and brought to life an automated system that gives me that time back while still producing stellar quality cannabis for me to consume. It's automated, it's a beautiful display case, and it's certainly a conversation starter. So let's move the conversation over to legalization. When we talk about legalization, we're going to talk about it in the context of Canada. We just legalized cannabis last Wednesday, or about a week ago. So who can buy cannabis? All Canadian adults will be able to buy, use, possess, and grow recreational cannabis. In Quebec and Alberta, the legal age is 18, and it's 19 in the remainder of the country. According to Canada's Bureau of Statistics, Canadians spend about as much on cannabis as they do on wine. They spend about $4.8 billion a year. The Canadian Imperial Bank of Commerce calculated that Canadians will consume 800,000 kilograms, or 1.75 million pounds of cannabis, much of which will be for the recreational use, and by 2020, the legal market for adult use cannabis will approach $6.5 billion in retail sales. The current state in Ontario is that we are able to buy cannabis through the Ontario Cannabis Store, or OCS. It's through the mail only. We placed an order with them last week that we haven't seen yet, and we found a lot of their product was out of stock, and we did see a story about them mislabeling a product. In Ontario, the new government has promised brick and mortar stores coming next year to take the form of dispensaries, where you'll be able to walk up and purchase your cannabis in person. Let's talk a little bit about the culture of cannabis with a couple employees from Grobo. Okay, so now we're going to talk a little bit with our culture panel. I'd like to introduce Jay Kent and Jason Harding to the panel. Welcome, guys.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So let's start off with Jay. Jay, what do you do here at Grobo?
I'm the mechanical design lead here, so basically I do everything that starts at the design phase and works its way down to manufacturing.
Great.
So, yeah.
Jason, what about yourself?
I'm the customer success representative here at Grobo, and I take incoming calls and emails from clients to answer their questions and help out with any issues that might pop up with their units or any questions they might have about their grow.
Awesome. Well, thanks for joining us, gentlemen. Thanks for getting up early and coming in before everybody gets here so we can have some quiet time here in the office. We're going to talk about cannabis and culture a little bit. I'm going to ask these gentlemen a couple questions about how cannabis has affected their culture and their views on it, their friends and family. So let's dive right into that. I'm going to start with Jason this time. Jason, how has your view of cannabis changed after working at a cannabis company? You're sort of new to us, been with us for a couple months now. How's your view changed of cannabis, or has it?
It definitely has. One of the more interesting things that I've learned over the past while is that I've been exposed to cannabis recreationally through friends or some time I spent using back in my youth. But the most interesting part that I've found is the old stereotype of cannabis users being the stoner with the beanie and the Bob Marley flag is not really accurate anymore. Even from the people I talk to every day, there are cannabis users from all walks of life, professionals to retirees, and the age range is amazing. It's all over the place. The other kind of interesting thing I've learned as I've been spending time here is how many people are using it for the medicinal side. I've always heard about it, read about it, but not been exposed to it myself. It's not something that people in my life have really needed to use. And learning about how legitimate it is and learning how useful it is and how helpful it is has been a really eye-opening experience for me since joining Grobo.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing. Jason, how about yourself? Jay, you've been here for a couple years now, core member of the team. How has your sort of view of cannabis changed over the year working here?
I had a lot of exposure to it growing up, not just in my teens, but I lived in a very eclectic household. But it was a lot of that more recreational use than medicinal use. So just like what Jason said, just being exposed to a lot more of the medicinal side of it, it's really changed my outlook on it, and just to understand just how interesting cannabis is to grow in of itself. Just from the horticulture side of it, I learned so much. So like every day, like at least once a week, I learned one new thing that has been pretty amazing.
Yeah, it's a beautiful plant, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, it's just good to look at.
Yeah.
It's so different. Just the amount of strains. People think that there's, maybe 100 strains, but just the thousands of strains out there. Just every plant's different. Every plant grows differently. Every plant's it's just amazing.
Yeah, and thanks for sharing. It's true. I always bring stuff out to show off, so I enjoy that too.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing a little bit about some of your view of how your view has changed over working here. My next question is a little bit similar, but we're going to shift just a bit. I'll stay with you, Jay. Let's talk about, you talked a little bit about your friends and family. How do they view you working at a company that you could grow cannabis in their product if you wanted?
Some of them, I didn't really have any negative impacts of it. They were kind of a little bit put off just because of the legalities of it. But they just thought it was a cool opportunity for me to go work on something that's as interesting as this unit. So I've done a lot of stuff in my design field, but this is the first time working for a startup, and so just the fact that they knew that it was going to be for cannabis, even though we alluded that we're growing tomatoes, they were still they were interested in it now, and now that it's legalized, they've really their focus has changed. They are asking me questions about not just our machine in particular, but just about everything that's going around the environment and the culture of it and how that's really changed. So yeah, they've been completely part of it.
Awesome.
It's interesting, yeah.
And my friends and family have never been so interested in what I'm doing for work before in my life. So, Jason, how about yourself? Talk a little bit about your friends and your family and the impact. I've got a job at a company that is very close to the cannabis industry. How's that landed?
Yeah, I mean, just to echo Jason, working for a startup is something that hasn't really surprised my friends and family, just because that seems to be where I spend a lot of my time in my professional life. But in terms of Grobo, I kind of don't see us as a cannabis company. I see us as a horticultural company or even a technology company, and just our product can also be used to grow cannabis. So my interest in joining was a lot more along the lines of, this is a tool that can be used to grow things, whatever it may be. And my family kind of looks at it the same way. Certainly some questions from my parents and how they sort of see things as in the cannabis industry and kind of, so they've asked some questions about how things work in the industry. But generally people have been pretty accepting. The cool thing about cannabis is that it's really grown into this large, legitimate industry in Canada and certainly some parts of the United States. And it's something that I've gotten a lot of questions about. The other part that I find really interesting is, for me personally, I used to cook professionally. So growing my own food is something that I've been involved with, and certainly even in some of the restaurants I work with, we grew our own herbs, we grew tomatoes, we grew different ingredients that we used in the restaurants. And so that's something I've taken with me. And with Grobo, and working here and learning more about how the unit works and how you can grow, it allows you to have that control over what you're doing and control over the environment. And that's really cool in sort of the food world. But the interesting part for me has, or one of the interesting parts for me has been, you also have that control over growing your own medicine, which I think is really exciting, because that's not something people usually think of. It's for many people, it's medicine. It helps them deal with, physical ailments or challenges they have in their life. And so that connection has been something that I've spoken a lot to about people in my life, and sort of something that they've even asked me a bunch of questions about. So it's been really, really neat to see that come out of working at a place like this.
Awesome. Any other points to add, gentlemen? I know any other culture points? I know we talked about a contest that you'd won at one point, your design career.
Yeah, that was
interesting.
Yeah, it was a blow-off steam contest in our products, because we applied the same principles of a design element to the contest that we would in our scholastic day-to-day lives. So we had a challenge to achieve, we had requirements that we had to meet, and then we put it out there, and everyone tested the product and then judged the product. And so I came in second, which is pretty good, with the gin and chronic. So it was a fun contest to do, but it was just the fact that we actually incorporated this culture into our design aesthetic and laid it out as part of the principle, like we were presenting to a client.
Yeah.
This contest.
So this was a bong contest in design school.
Bong, a bong or a smoking device.
Yeah.
In the design school, and there was 40 in our class, and 30 of us participated. So the ratio was pretty high.
Yeah.
And so some of us.
Interesting.
Yeah. It's very fun.
Jay, any other culture points to add?
Just that it's been really neat, especially with legalization happening about a week ago.
Last week, yeah.
To see kind of where things are growing. Even through the news and how people are reacting and seeing how things are developing. It's been really interesting. Also keeping an eye on how things are going sort of south of the border as well. There are some states that have some pretty liberal views about the use of marijuana legalization, and then there are some that less so, and then the whole situation about the federal policies versus the state policies. That's something that comes up even just in some of our day-to-day discussions just around the office, in terms of just some of the stuff that comes out of how people are reacting in the conversations. And it's going to be neat to see what the effect of what we've done in Canada and see how that might affect other parts of the world. There are conversations about places like Portugal, which decriminalized all drugs, or the reaction of people crossing the border into the United States, and what potential implications of that might be, and seeing how all that develops, I think, is something really neat and going to be really interesting moving forward.
Yeah, well, piggybacking on that statement, just the fact that when the first states started coming on board with legalization, there was a lot of fanfare, and now it feels like almost once a month another state had come on, and you don't even hear about it. It's nothing. So it's like the reaction to it for this legalization just continues to get less and less over time. It's becoming the new normal. So that's kind of interesting to find out. It's just, and like Jason said, about the federal level to the state level, especially in the United States, that is such a broad range there of opinions, difference of opinions. It's incredible that they still have that.
Yeah.
So
a lot of money to be made too, so that's changing some money.
It's interesting, yeah. I think people are still pandering to the more conservative constituents at the state level or at the federal level. But I think once they start seeing that, that change, that mindset, the financial mindset is changing them over. Once they start seeing better improvements in their own state, then they're wondering.
Yeah, and opioid death down as well is
a big one, yeah.
Yeah,
it's very interesting.
Guys, thanks very much for joining us today. I really appreciate it, taking some time out of your morning to come and talk about cannabis here on camera. It can be kind of daunting, I know, so great job. Thanks again. Thanks for joining us today in our cannabis talk here about culture. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them in the section below, and come and catch our next episode. We're going to be filming on Thursday, November the 1st. We're going to take a closer look at all the ways you can grow cannabis, so that'll be exciting. And we'll see you soon.